Before we begin today's video, if you guys have not checked out my new self-mastery school, it is called Ignite Your Soul. The information is going to be down below. So there's access to multiple different courses as well as guided meditations. I highly recommend my Become a Love Magnet course. It teaches you self-love, it teaches you how to connect back to the soul, and it is the ultimate truth. So that is essentially the foundation that you want to begin with on your spiritual path. But I also have meditations. There's a new root chakra meditation if you're struggling with financial security and financial abundance. But I have carefully crafted all of these programs on this school to support you guys. Okay, so if you have any questions, definitely leave the comments down below or head over to my website and you can shoot me an email there. All right, but without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Kaylin Bowman. Be fiercely authentic, live your truth. So today I wanted to share with you how I was able to personally break free from the matrix. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with the term the matrix, you've probably heard me talk about 3D and 5D reality. In other words, 3D level of consciousness versus 5D level of consciousness. So when we're talking about the matrix, we're talking about the 3D level of consciousness, which means that it's very fear-based, right? Because it's based in separation and it's based in lack. So that is the level of awareness that I had for most of my life until my spiritual awakening, which is pretty much how it goes for everyone, right? So we live in fear. We live in this idea of being separate from everything, and we're pretty much just completely living in the illusion. So I want to share with you guys today what I was able to do to break free from this illusion, because on the other side of breaking out of the illusion is ultimate freedom and peace. So one of the other benefits of breaking out of the matrix is that you begin to live a life free of fear. Now, it doesn't mean that things won't challenge you, right? But you're not going to be held back by the limitations of your own mind anymore because you're able to rise above it, right? Because most of the time, actually always, what holds us back in life is our own mind. It's our egoic thought process. It's the ego that was created to keep us safe. But as we raise our level of consciousness, we realize that we don't need to listen to that voice anymore. So essentially what the matrix is the societal programming that we take on when we're very young, and it builds and builds and builds into our adulthood, and we believe all of these things around us. So we believe the media, we believe what our friends are saying, we believe what our family members are saying, and thus we get thrown into this belief in this pool of fear and separation, and that's why there's so much, pain and suffering in the world, because we're all just living out of our egoic minds and, thinking that we're separate from each other, and thus we're hurting each other, and we're trying to one-up each other. We're all competing. And when you start to raise your level of consciousness and you start to raise your awareness and essentially break out of the matrix, there's no need for any of that. Because once you break out of the matrix, you realize that everything that is in your experience, people, places, things, are all a direct reflection of what's going on in here. Everything is mirrored out. And so really, and I talked about this in a video before, where we often react really intensely to our own projections, right? Because the things that are happening outside of us are first happening in here. Now, the reason why we don't see that is because there is the buffer of time. And I've talked about this a lot in my videos. But when we have a thought, whether it's conscious or subconscious, it might not play out into the physical world until tomorrow, next week, maybe a year from now, maybe even 5 years from now, right? So that's why we're not able to see how our thoughts and what we believe actually creates our reality. So first of all, if we just look at that for a second, that's one way to actually break out of the matrix, is to realize that everything you're experiencing, you first created within yourself. What was the biggest catalyst for me breaking out of the matrix was my suffering. And that's why I say that suffering in life does have a purpose. It actually has a very important purpose. And I think the more we suffer in life, oftentimes the more we're propelled to find another way to experience life, right? Because we can only experience suffering so much. And what our suffering is actually showing us is that we are so disconnected from our ultimate truth. Right? Because our ultimate truth, our true nature, our soul, is unconditional love, and it's vibrating at a very high level. So when we are suffering and we're in a low vibration, what's actually happening is it's just an indication that we are far off the mark of who we naturally are, right? And so what takes us down to this lower vibration is the mind. And it's not to say that the mind in itself is a bad thing, because it's not. When we learn how to see beyond the mind, then we can use the mind and harness it in a way that benefits us. But until we see beyond the mind and understand who we are beyond the egoic concepts, we will always be a victim to the thoughts that keep us stuck and keep us in limitation. So in order to break out of the matrix, we have to be able to quiet down our minds and connect to that source energy that is not of the mind. It is of the soul. And so on this channel, you guys know now that I talk a lot about the ego versus the soul, because this is really the key to spirituality. And for a long time, I did think that the ego was a bad thing. The ego is not a bad thing. And in fact, I actually thank my ego at times, because my ego was able to protect me through some very painful experiences. However, I don't need that anymore, right? So we get to a place where we don't need that egoic voice anymore. We don't need that self-protection, because we connect to something far greater and far more powerful. And that energy supply that we connect to is our soul energy. It's our true essence. Because at the end of the day, everything around us, right? Our family members, our friends, our home, our car, our pets, all of these things are temporary. These are all a part of the illusion. What is going to stay with us forever is our soul. That's what is eternal, right? So when we get attached to these physical things, we strengthen the illusion that we're living in. So that brings me to my third point. So the way I was able to break free from the matrix was also to let go of my attachments to things. Now, I know some people question this idea of attachment, because you think, well, shouldn't I care about the people that are in my life? And absolutely, right? You know, when our heart is open, we have compassion for every human being that we interact with, because we recognize that they are a part of us. However, attachment is a completely different thing. Attachment is needing people around us, these people or even events or experiences, because you can be attached to things as well. But it's needing those things to be happy. That's what attachment is. Attachment is needing something to fulfill something for yourself. So to break free of the matrix is to understand that you are responsible, you and only you are responsible for your state of being. Actually, nothing outside of you can make you feel any way. And I know we're trained otherwise, but it's when you really think about it, who is the only person that has access to your emotions, right? Your emotional state. Who has access to that? Just you. And that's a really liberating thing to understand, is that when we break free of attachments, which means that we take away the importance of certain things in our lives, and we realize that our happiness, our joy, our peace is all within us. And that way we can actually experience things around us, as well as people and as well as relationships, without that attachment. Which means when there's no attachment, there's no fear. So when there's no fear, we rise above, right? So when there's no fear, we rise to that fifth dimension, which is unconditional love. So I know this is kind of a lot to take in. I'm going to give you one more thing that I did to be able to break free from the matrix. But I would say that there's no, one formula, right? If you just keep pursuing your spiritual path, if you keep seeking the truth within yourself rather than the truth from the outer world, you're going to connect to this ultimate understanding. And videos like this are going to resonate with you more and more as you start to connect with that. The fourth thing that I did was I stopped judging things. So the mind, the monkey mind I like to call it, loves to judge. Right? So we see events in our lives and we like to judge them as either good or bad. But the problem with that is when we judge things as either good or bad, we have an emotional reaction that is dependent on that judgment. So our mind essentially will dictate our emotions. And in order to be able to break free from the matrix, we have to be able to break free from the thought patterns and the judgments, right? Because peace is actually in presence. So when we're present, we have no judgment of anything. We're just experiencing things, right? So I'll give you guys an example, and I might have used this example before on the channel, but let's say it's raining outside, okay? So it starts pouring, it starts raining, and we have Bob on one side of the town who is completely thrilled that it's raining, right? He's excited because he has a farm and his crops need moisture, they need that nutrients, they need that water, right? So he's thrilled. But then let's back it up and let's look at Martha, Okay, let's say Martha's on the other side of town and it's her wedding day. So Martha's actually pissed. She's pissed that it's raining because she had all these plans made. She's got 1,000 people coming to this wedding, so she's really upset. So we have two people experiencing the same event with two different reactions. Why is that? Is it the events in our lives that cause our emotion, or is it our judgments of the events? And when we begin to understand that, and we use that when it comes to deeper matters in our lives, we begin to understand again that we have control over our emotions, and our peace comes from non-judgment. And another reason why this is a powerful practice is because when we are not judging things, we're taking our mind out of the equation and we're present. And when we're present to the experiences in our lives, and when we're present with the people in our lives, we experience what is called unconditional love. All right, so I do hope this video was helpful and supported you guys in terms of, your own spiritual journey, being able to break out of the 3D paradigm. My hope is that I can help as many people raise their level of awareness, raise their level of consciousness to see beyond this 3D world and to experience more love and to experience far less fear. All right, so if this video was helpful, be sure to give me a thumbs up, go down below, subscribe, hit the bell to get my notifications, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.